Good afternoon. Welcome to Healing the Brokenhearted. I'm Dale Pugh. That's Wes Ragsdale. And we are always happy to spend some time with you today. We're going to continue talking about the extravagant love of God from the story in Luke 15, also known as the prodigal son. But Wes is talking about the prodigal God. And in today's message, Wes, I thought you were going to focus on the elder brother in the story. There's three people in the story: the father, the younger son that got his inheritance, went off, but then the elder brother that stayed. So, Wes, tell us about that elder brother and how we can apply that to our own lives.
Absolutely, because the elder brother is actually a tragic story in many ways, and in some of the emails that I put out to people about the podcast, I asked them to try and figure out which one they were. Were they the older brother or the rebellious younger brother? I certainly was the rebellious younger brother. There's no doubt about that fact
Me
with
too.
me.
Me too.
You too. Yeah. And and some of my favorite people were back in the day. One of my favorite preachers was C.M. Ward, and C.M. Ward was the revival time radio speaker for the Assemblies of God. And when he was at Central Bible College, he did crazy things like he did a headstand in the middle of the night on top of the tallest building there, and they put him on restriction for a long time. He did crazy stuff, but he turned out to be a great preacher. And you know, here's the thing: the rebellious guys like us frequently are also very blessed of God. And what happens is that the older brother types get very angry about the fact that we get blessed more than they do, or at least they think we get blessed more than they do. I don't think we get blessed anymore, but they don't see the blessing like we do. I think that's part of the problem. But here's the point: with the older brother, the father just it broke his heart. There's no question how much the father suffered. Remember, we talked about last week how he was in what we call a situation where he had no control. In other words, in the beginning with both the sons, there was nothing he could do, because until one or both of them turned around and said, "I need help," he couldn't interfere. And what he did is the wise thing. He kept his faith before God, and he left it up to God to bring them to their senses, which is what happened to the rebellious younger brother. He finally came to his senses, and he came home willing to say, "I am a sinner, and I don't even deserve to be your son."
That's right.
So he really changed. And when he changed, the father ran and embraced him, and they had a celebration. But here's where it gets really sticky. Then he went to the elder brother, the one who did everything right all the time. He followed every rule. He followed everything that needed to be done, but and so forth. But at the same time, he was alienated from his father. He did not love his father. He only wanted what his father had. He wanted good things from his father, but he did not want to have a real, true relationship with the father. And so when the prodigal son, as we called him, came home and got embraced, it appears to us that from that point on, he and his father had a relationship. This is what we believe happened from that point on, because of the fact that he changed in his heart. His heart got changed. The sad one was the older brother. We have no record that he ever changed.
No.
And here's the problem: in the established churches across this country, the vast majority of the people that attend those churches are the older brother types. And what happens to them is And I dealt with many of these. I cannot tell you how many I dealt with, where because they would do all the right things all the time, and then they would look over at one of the rebels like me, and God was blessing me, and God was doing these wonderful things through me. And actually, one of them came to our house one day, not a few years ago, after Rita and I were married and so forth, and sat right in the living room. And what she said was as follows: she said, "You know what? We still don't understand why God chose to use you instead of any one of the rest of us." And I knew what she was talking about. Well, the
Yes.
reason was because you see, when you do everything right all the time, you start taking personal credit for what you have done, and you don't realize that you're leaving God out of the picture. The rebel doesn't have any hope of that, and when he finally does hear from God, he just totally surrenders and says, "Okay, now I can get my life straight," which is what happened to me, and it's what happened to Dale. But the older brother types, God has the hardest time getting through to because they honestly think that they deserve all that God has because they are always doing exactly the right thing. One of the great stories is Mary and Martha. And what happened is when Jesus came to visit them, Mary went in and sat at his feet to listen to him, and Martha was busy doing work. And if you really translate properly what happened, she came in to we'll call it the living room, and she was angry, and
Hmm.
she went on the assault, saying, "I don't understand this. How come she gets to be in here and I got to be doing all the work?"
Hmm.
Well, you see, that's the attitude of the older brother. He's Wes is over there getting blessed, and God's using him over here and using him over there, and I'm still sitting here doing all the right things, and nothing's happening to me.
Well, Wes, I just think that this is a principle that us younger brothers that went out and lost everything, when we came back, there are two components. We're so
Yes.
thankful that he forgave us and
Ah,
received us back. And number
amen.
two, you, myself, and all the others that I know that are like us, we know we can't do anything right in our own strength. So we
Exactly.
have to rely on God.
Exactly.
When I came to the Lord during what's known as the Jesus movement, 200 young people got saved at my church, most of them out
There
of
you go.
free love, drug culture, party culture. But there were some kids there that were church kids that were raised in the church. And some of the church kids thought, the hippies are ruining our church because they were afraid that we were going to lower the standards. And really, we
Mhm.
looked like a bunch of people like what David's original first 400. We were
Sure.
discouraged. Were deserters. We were, without hope. So
Oh yeah.
I asked you, you could probably only start to answer this question, but what would you say to someone that wants to get free of the elder brother mindset? You might just start to answer it, might have to answer it in next week's podcast, but is there
Yeah.
any
I
hope
want
for
to.
an elder
Yeah.
brother?
Yeah. I want to deal. I will deal in detail with that in the next podcast. But what I want to do is I want to add on to what you just said because yeah, let me just tell you this. When everything started happening with me, they had actually our pastor, Galen Vinson, had asked me to take over and preach the Sunday night services, and and it was horrible. I was bored, and I was the one doing the preaching. Then it was really bad. I mean, I was no good. But what happened is the kids started meeting at my home, and God began to move. And here's the picture. One Sunday night, very typical. We had about 30 people, and they were all sitting in the back few rows, and then everything in front of them, all the empty chairs. But they all looked holy. They had on the right clothing. They looked scrubby Dutch clean. They were wearing, they looked Pentecostal, if you know what I mean. Well, maybe you don't know what I mean, but
I
the
do know
point
what you
is,
mean. Yeah.
I know you do, but I mean, I'm just simply saying They were following all the rules. Okay. And so they were there. And all of a sudden the back door opened. And I'm not going to tell you who the first one in was, but I will tell you this. The first one in had long hair down to his shoulders, and he had a pair of short shorts on that were split up the side, and he was wearing Jesus sandals, and he had a rope for a belt, and he had a purse on the belt, and he had a see-through shirt on, and he had a Bible that was in you couldn't do this. I mean, we were not allowed to do this. He had it in a leather container with all kinds of Jesus things all over it, and he had Jesus stickers on his back end. And following him was another almost 40 kids dressed very similar. And what did they do? They came right to the front and sat down on the floor. And God began to move in the meeting. Guess what? We lost 20 of the 30 people within less than 2 days. We lost them. And Galen was all upset. And I said, what are you upset about? We got rid of all the ones that don't want God to move.
Well, that is a good place to stop with.
Yes,
So
it is.
next podcast, Wes is going to help, because some of us that have been saved a while still can get into elder brother mindsets. So
Yes,
I
we
want
can.
Wes to talk about how to get set free from that.
Yes.
Thanks for watching this, and tell your friends to tune in. We'll see you next week, same time, same place.